Hello, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, so today is the first session you're having for CT, or was there a session before this? Anyone? Was there a class you had for CT before
It's
this?
the second session. It's the
Okay.
second session.
Okay, so what did you do in the first session? Did you cover any of week one lectures?
क्या हुआ?
Others, please mute yourself. So, yeah. Was week one any of the lectures were they discussed in the last session?
क्लास बोले थे 6 बजे होगा. बंद है. हाँ. आप ऐसी डालता.
Okay, then I'll just start from the beginning. So, I'm Manideepa. I'll be one of your course instructors for CT. Now, in this course, we are going to basically learn the prerequisite for any programming language, right? So, whether you're learning C or Python after this, whatever you want to start with. So, CT is supposed to prepare you for that, okay? So, we are going to discuss basic pseudocodes, flowcharts, these things. So, in week one, we have most of the information is regarding flowcharts, right? So, pseudocode flowcharts, these are all different ways of just how we can represent a program itself. Okay, these are just easier ways to start off. Now, throughout the course, we'll mostly be dealing with pseudocode. Okay, and if you just take a look, you can take a look at previous sessions also, like previous term sessions. So for each week, we will have 3 sessions in CT, right? One on Monday, one on Friday, and one on Saturday. So depending on whatever your deadline is for that week, so we will be completing the material for the week, obviously before the deadline, and we'll also discuss the practice questions. And after the deadline is over, we will do one more session where we will practice the graded questions, right? Okay. So let me share my screen. Is it visible to you?
Yeah, it's visible.
Alright. So week one, we are going to start off with flowchart, like I said. So what is a flowchart? Any idea, anyone? Where do we use flowcharts? All right, see. Flowchart is what? It is just going to give you how the flow of the program, like the control flow of the program. Okay, that we are going to represent using flowcharts. So a flowchart will have some commonly used symbols, or you can say blocks, right? So the first symbol is this rectangular box. Okay, so this we will represent any process or activity that we are doing. Like let's say I am adding, incrementing x by 1. So if I write x equals to x plus 1. Okay, so this is an arithmetic operation or any type of activity that we are doing in the program itself. So that will be represented in the form of a rectangular box that we call a process box in a flowchart. Okay. This diamond box is a decision box. So whenever we have a decision to make, let's say I am having one program where I want to check whether a number is odd or even, right? So what is the condition for checking odd or even, anyone? If a number x is odd or even, what is the condition?
We have to divide it by 2 and see if
The remainder
gives
is
any
0.
remainder or not.
Correct. So this is the question that I will check that whether if I do x by 2, then whether this remainder, whatever this gives, will be equal to 0 or not, right? So if it is 0, so there are two parts. If it is 0, yes, then we can say that it's even,
It's even.
right? If it is not 0, then it's odd. So this question that you're asking, that whether it is 0 or not, this will be in the decision box. So every decision box will have two arrows approaching from it. Okay, one for the yes, one for the no. That whether if this question is the answer to the question is yes, then it will go to the yes arrow. If no, then go to the no arrow. Okay,
Excuse
so
me,
this,
ma'am.
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to ask where can we get the recordings of the previous session?
You can go to the IITM BS degree YouTube channel. Okay, so under there you can find playlist for CT. There all the sessions are there, recordings.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, so this is about the decision box. Now, one more thing we have is this arrow, right? So arrow is just to show you where we are going, like after one step, which step we are going to. Like after this process or activity box, let's say I have a decision box after this in the flowchart. So there will be an arrow from this box to this box. So this is the control flow. Its arrow is just showing the flow of the program. Okay, and this is the terminal box. So in general, whenever we are writing a program in any programming language, let's say, obviously we don't write start or end. There is nothing like that. But when we are doing a flowchart representation, then two terminal boxes are going to be there. The first one is going to have a start in it. And after we have gone through the entire flowchart, then at the end, there will be one more terminal box to mark the end of the flowchart. Okay, so two terminals in every flowchart will be there, start and end. So these are the flowchart symbols that we are going to be using. Is it clear for everyone? Any doubt? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay. See, one more thing I want to clear up before we go further is that these sessions, live sessions, are for your interaction. Okay, whatever doubts you have, whatever part you didn't understand from the lectures, so please bring it up. It's not just me that's going to be talking. Okay, so you also tell me whatever doubts you have, any part that you are not understanding. Okay, let's make this interactive. Okay, now instead of showing all this, let's just try a flowchart. Okay, that will be more interesting. So this is a flowchart for counting cards. Okay, so if you people have gone through the data set for CT, right? We have a data set. I guess that was you were told that in the first session, I hope. So we have multiple data sets actually. We have a shopping bills data set, a library data set, a scores data set, right? All of them contain stacks of cards. Okay, everyone please mute unless you have a question. Don't unmute, okay? So yeah, every data set will have a stack of cards. Okay, that's how we are representing the data in the lectures also. So if you see that the professors are dealing with a stack of cards, every card has some information in it, right? So if we, let's say if we are dealing with the scores data set, so what does scores data set represent? So it has like 30 cards in it. Okay, you can find that on the portal, right? I think there is a, on the left hand side panel, you can find the data sets. So just check them out once. So the scores data set is one of the ones that we will be using more frequently than others. So it contains information about students. Okay. So there are 30 individual students. Each of them have a card, and the cards have certain information in them. Like in a typical scores data set, a card will contain the following fields. Okay. So it will contain a sequence number. So every card has a unique sequence number. Then it will have the name of the student. Okay, it will have what city they belong to. Then it will also have their maths, physics, and chemistry marks. So 3 different marks in 3 subjects, and we'll have one more field for the total marks that they have got. Okay. So these are all the information that are present in each card in the scores data set. Each card represents an individual student. Okay. So like I said that there are 30 cards in this data set. Now I know that. Now let's say you are given any random deck of cards. You don't know how many cards are there.
Ma'am,
Okay.
date of birth is also there.
Yeah, date of birth is also there. So just go through the data sets once so you are familiar with whatever information is present. Okay. There is also DOV. Now, let's say you have a random deck of cards. You don't know how many cards are in it. Now, I want you to write a flowchart that will be counting the cards. Okay, so that flowchart we are going to build here. So the first element in a flowchart has to be the first terminal, which is the start one. So this is the starting point of the flowchart. So this is a rectangular box with rounded edges, right? So this is the first terminal. When we start, the cards are all assumed to be in a single pile. So just be familiar with this nomenclature because we are going to use this in every question. Okay, like pile 1, pile 2. So these are representing piles of cards. So let's say that first you have a deck of cards which we are calling pile 1. Okay, so all the cards are present in pile 1. Now our goal is to count the number of cards. So next I will have a process or an activity box. This is terminal. This is process box. So in process box, you can initialize variables. This count is nothing but a variable. So do you have any idea, anyone, about data types of variables?
Yeah,
Anyone?
ma'am, like
There are like
int, float.
Correct. So if I want to count number of cards and I want to store that number in this count variable, so what will be the data type of count?
Integer.
Integer.
Integer. Integer.
Int. Right, integer. Very good. So count is an integer type of variable. So whenever we initialize a variable, initialize means we are initially assigning some value to it. This equal to operator is nothing but assignment operator. Okay, this is not a comparison operator. So this is assignment operator. Now, if I want to compare some value to 0, that whether some particular value n is equal to 0 or not, if I want to compare that, then you have to use the comparison operator, that is double equals. Okay, this is comparison and single is assignment. Okay, so first we initialize this count variable to 0 because we are going to start counting. So till now we haven't seen any cards, so it is 0. Now, so this is where now the iterator will start. So iterator means what? Iterator means any iteration, whenever we see iteration. Okay. So iteration means a single process that is repeating time and again. Okay. Every repetition is an iteration. So like when I'm counting the cards, what am I doing? I'm picking up one card from the pile and I'm incrementing the value of count by 1. That, okay, I have now seen one more card. Right. So this process will repeat for all the cards till pile 1 becomes empty. So this is a repetitive process. And every time we are repeating the process, that is called one iteration. Okay. So this is where the iterator will start. So we need to repeat the following steps. You have to pick one card from pile 1. And once we have seen the card, we will move it to a separate file called pile 2. Why? Because if we keep on putting it back in pile 1, then we are going to repeat counting the same cards, right? So just put it in a separate file after you read that card. And you have to increment the value of count every time you encounter or read a new card. So this is very simple, right? So iteration will stop when? When pile 1 is empty, no more cards to read. So after this count is initialized, then we will have a decision box. So in decision box, we are going to check that are there more cards in pile 1? Right. So this is basically the question that we are going to ask before every iteration, that are there more cards? Then only I can pick a new card, right? So if this is a decision box, how many arrows will go out of this?
Ma'am, 2. Yes
2,
and
right?
no.
Correct. So if there are more cards, then yes, we will continue with the iteration. If there are no more cards, then we can end the flowchart. Okay. So we will be asking this question if there are more cards in pile 1 in the decision box. See, 2 arrows. Now, yes, if it is true, no, if it is false. Now, if it is true, then you pick up a card X from pile 1. This is any card that you're picking from the pile, considering that there are more cards. Okay, so whenever you are doing any activity, it is going to be an activity box. So it's a rectangular box here. Now, if there are no more cards, if pile 1 is empty, then you can directly end the flowchart. So this is one more terminal. This is the end terminal,
Hello.
right? Yeah.
Ma'am, the recording will be available on the calendar, na?
Calendar, I think it will be, but even if it is not uploaded immediately, you can check out from the YouTube channel. Okay, that will be uploaded instantly.
Okay, so the link of that YouTube channel would be on the.
It's just search IITM BS degree. Okay, that's the
Okay.
channel name. Under that, you can find a playlist for CT.
Okay, no, this recording would be
Yeah,
there
this
instantly.
recording would be there. Yes.
Can you also place the link on the Google Calendar? It would be very helpful
Yeah, it will be placed, but I'm saying that if it is not immediately
to
updated,
the
you can still find it. Okay. Okay. So Now, once I've picked a card, now I will read that card and move it to pile 2. Right. After I have moved it to pile 2, then I will increment count. So for after reading the first card, counts value will now become what? 1. Right. Up like this. It has to be incremented every time we read a new card. So after you increment count, you again have to go back to which step? The decision box. Right. To check if there are more cards in pile 1. Then you will pick another card. So this entire process that is happening, right? This arrow that you see. This one. So this entire thing is the iteration. Okay, this entire process is repeating again and again. See, none of these steps are repeating. Once we reach these steps, there is no repetition of these. But this middle part will keep on repeating until pile 1 is empty. So every repetition is called an iteration. Right? So after I increment count, after I read the first card, then I will go back to this step, the decision box, and ask, are there more cards? If yes, then again pick another card, move it to pile 2, increment count like this. So in summary, what we are doing is first start the flowchart with first terminal, then a process box where we initialize the count variable to 0. Then we have a decision box where we check whether there are more cards in pile 1 or not. If yes, then we'll pick a card, we will move it to pile 2, we'll increment count, and we'll keep on doing this until pile 1 becomes empty. Then when we ask the question in decision box, are there more cards in pile 1? The answer will be no, and we can finish the flowchart with another terminal. Right? Any doubts so far?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Yes, Naman, you have a doubt?
And basically, we are making a loop.
Yeah, this is a loop only. Yes.
So,
So
ma'am,
since we
this is a
haven't
for loop or while loop?
since we haven't introduced the concept of loops, right? Because we are not using any programming language per se. We're just going to use pseudocode. So we are never going to write that we are using a loop. Okay. Now, if you are familiar with programming languages, then you know that there are different kinds of loops: for loop, while loop, do while loop. Now, all of these loops do the exact same thing. Like if you want to perform an iteration, you can execute that using any of these loops. Okay, whether for or while, do while, anything. So for now, we will just call it an iteration. Okay. Okay, now let's go to a little bit more difficult flowchart. That is sum of maths marks. So we are taking the scores dataset at this point, which I just told you. What it contains is cards of individual students, their marks, and personal information about them. Okay, now let's say I have that scores dataset and I want to find the total sum of mathematics marks for all students. So this is the flowchart for that. Okay. So this is the flowchart that we just saw for counting cards. Now, how can we modify this flowchart into serving the purpose of this program? So let's see which parts we have to modify. So first we need sum, right? So let's just change this variable count with another variable called sum. Okay. Now variable names can be anything. You can keep it A, B, C, Z, whatever you want. But just to make this look more cohesive, we'll use sum. So initialize the sum variable to 0 because initially no one's maths marks have been read. So initially it is 0. So we can change this process box from count equals to 0 to sum equals to 0, where 0 is assigned to sum. So it will look like this. Okay. Now next we have to go through the entire pile, right? Because we want the sum of maths marks of all students. So we have to go through all the cards. So this decision box will remain there, right? So we'll ask, are there more cards in pile 1? If the answer is yes, we'll again pick a card and we will read that card and then move it to pile 2. Okay, now this box. Now do we need to increment anything here? What do we need to do? No increment, right? We just need to
Ma'am,
extract the
add.
math marks.
Change the increment count to sum equals to sum plus 0 either.
Sum plus 0, no. Sum equals to sum plus maths marks. Okay.
Yes.
That is maths marks of a particular student whose card you are reading right now. So once you have some student's card that you have picked, you can extract any data from that card. So let's say I want to extract the maths marks of a particular student. So this process box will be now changed to this. So add card X's math score to sum. So sum variable is initially 0. Now I'm going to add whatever the student's maths marks is, to this sum variable. Okay. Now, basically, we should write here instead of writing this. Let me see if they have updated. Okay. So instead of, we actually don't write like this that add card excess math score. So instead of this, you can just write sum equals to sum plus x dot maths. X dot maths means x card's math score. Okay. So x dot math. Whatever this is, add it to the sum variable. So let's say the first student has scored 80 in maths. So sum is initially what? 0. So sum equals to sum plus maths means sum equals to 0 plus 80. That is 80. Now again I will go to this decision box. So first iteration is over. Now second iteration. Are there more cards? Yes. So pick the second card. So second card, after you pick it, you read the card, move it to a separate file, file 2. Now again read the maths marks of that card. So let's say the second student has scored 70. So at this point sum's value is 80. So now it will again be sum equals to sum plus 70. That means 80 plus 70. Right, 150. So like this, you will go through all the cards in the pile until the pile becomes empty. So at the point that the pile is empty, at that point, sum is storing what? The sum of maths marks of all students. Correct? Then it becomes empty, so you end the program. Clear this one? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Yes, I'm clear.
No, ma'am.
See, we are just doing an accumulation here, right? So all the maths marks are being accumulated and added in this single sum variable. These are very like basic first steps. So let's just give a generic summary of what this flowchart looks like. So we have a terminal, then we initialize a variable, right? So most flowcharts will look like this because at the start of any program, we need variables, right? Like mostly, let's say 90% of the time, we will be initializing variables first. Then we will ask a question. There will be a decision box. Like, what is the condition that your program is asking you to check? So that condition will be placed in this decision box. Now, based on whether the condition is fulfilled or not, if yes, then you go pick an unvisited element from the pile of cards. You mark that element as visited, so you move it to a separate file. And then you update the variables as required. Like here, I updated sum. Before that, I updated count, like this. So you will do this process, you will do the iterations until the file becomes empty. That is, the answer to this decision box becomes no. And then you go to the end and place another end terminal here. Okay, this is the generic flowchart for iterations. So that's the end of this lecture. Now let's go to 1.5. So if anyone has any doubt so far, you can let me know.
Ma'am, a small doubt.
Yeah.
You said like for summing up the marks, we write it like x dot max.
Yeah.
So where do we find these notations? Like because in the
They
lecture
will
class.
come. Yeah, they will come later on. Okay. So in this, I think week 2 only, whenever we start pseudocode, we will have all these notations. Okay. I just wrote it so that you're familiar with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So next lecture, now we will have flowchart for sum with filtering. So till now we haven't done any filtering. Filtering just means that you are placing excess conditions. Okay, like I said in the last flowchart, we did that we are finding sum of maths marks. Now what more filters can I put on it? What are filters? Let's say you are searching for some item on Amazon. Right, so there you have multiple filters that you can place. Like, okay, this is my budget is from 500 to 1000 rupees. So you place that filter. Right. So these are filters. So these filters can also be placed in programs, right? More conditions. So like this sum of maths marks, I can put another filter like I want to find the sum of maths marks of all boys. So this all boys, this is a separate filter that I'm imposing on that same program. So now I have to do what? I have to check whether a student is a boy or a not before I can add their maths marks to the variable sum. Right. So there is one extra step of processing. So let's see this example. So how do we modify this flowchart that we just saw to do the sum of boys' maths marks? Now this is the goal. You can place any filters. Okay. So
And
first
condition.
again, yeah, condition, exactly. So first again, we start with the terminals, then initialize the variables. Then you check whether there are more cards in pile 1. If yes, then you pick a card, read that card and move it to pile 2. So there are no repetitions. Now, previously we were just directly adding the math score of that student to the sum variable, right? Now this part will be modified. So before I do this, I need to impose another condition. So right here, after I read the card and move it to pile 2, I'll have one more decision box. Because whenever we are asking a question, okay, whenever we are imposing a condition, it has to come inside a decision box. So we are asking that whether X is a boy or a girl, right? So if he's a boy, then you will add their math score to the sum variable. If not, so for that also we need a branch. So that branch is not being shown here. So what do you think will happen if it is a girl? Where should we go now?
Mom,
Ma'am, we should go to the
And,
again more cards in pile 1 decision
go
box.
to the pile
Right.
2.
So I should go back to this, right? I should check for the next card. So
Ma'am, but isn't the X is a boy decision box should be in between PK card X from pile 1 to move to X, move to pile 2?
so after you read the card, okay, after you read the card, then you move it to pile 2. So now
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have the card information. Now you can do the processing on it. Okay, so immediately after you read a card, you have to move it to pile 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, now if it is yes, then no problem. You can just add the maths marks and go back to the decision box and again check for the next card. Now, if it is no, that X is a girl.
भाई आ रहे हैं
Who is this? Please mute Mukesh.
sorry ma'am.
Okay. Now,
Ma'am?
if X is a girl, yeah.
To avoid the repetition, we simply don't pick a card from pile 1, check whether it's a boy or a girl, and if it's a girl, we don't just move directly to the first decision box. We move this to pile 2 to avoid repetition of the same card.
Correct. So that we don't pick that card again.
Okay.
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 So first you move it to pile 2, then you check this, that whatever data I extracted, is that person a boy or a girl? Now, if it is a boy, then it's fine. If it is a girl, then you follow this arrow now. So you go back to the decision box, okay, without adding their sum. Now you pick the next card and again do the same process. Check whether first read the information, move it to pile 2, then again check whether it's a boy or a girl. Now, like this, we will do till we reach the end of pile 1, right? When it is empty, there are no more cards. So then you can go to end. So at this point, when I end the procedure, sum should be carrying what? The total sum of maths marks of all boys in the pile. Now we can do one more thing. Let's say here now I want the sum of both maths marks of girls and boys. So now we can just do a small modification here. So up to this, everything is fine. Okay. You pick a card, you read the information, you move it to pile 2. Now you ask the question whether X is a boy. If it is yes, then you add card X's math score to boy sum. Boy sum is a variable, so instead of writing sum, since now we have decided that we need two different sums. So the sum of maths marks of boys is, that variable is now boy sum, and for girls it is girl sum. Okay. So if it is a boy, add to boy sum. If the decision box answer is no, then you go and add the maths marks of that card to girl sum. So like this, at the end of the procedure, we'll have both marks summations, right? So this is just showing you how we can modify a generic flowchart to accommodate any conditions that we want to give it. Okay. So in any case, in this one, what happens is that whether we are interacting with a card that is of a boy or that is of a girl, in any case, we will go back to the beginning of the iterator. Right, always. See, both these arrows are tracing back here. So this is sum with filtering. So here you can place any condition, like I want to find the sum of marks of all students who are from Mumbai. So then what will be the condition that you'll check? If x dot city is equal to Mumbai. So this will be in your decision box. So if the answer to this comparison is yes, then you add the card's maths marks to sum. Otherwise, you again go and pick the next card. So any condition you want. Okay, this lecture is over. So any doubts in this part?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, so let's go to the next one.
No, ma'am.
I have a question, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, this cycle which you are showing, this is, for the one card right? We pick up the card, enter the information, and
Right.
if it is yes, so when we will go, because now we still have more cards in pile one. So where will we enter and how will we enter the data for the next card?
So once, see, it works like this. So once you pick a card, okay, then you have that card's information. Now, when I pick the next card in the process, then I have this particular, like the current card's information. I'm not dealing with the past information anymore. So in memory, how it is stored now, that is a bit of a more complex thing to explain at, like, this is a very introductory lecture. But yeah,
Okay.
in most processes, what happens is that whenever you're using a for loop or a while loop in an actual program, so if we
Mhm.
don't need that data further along in the future, then we will not store it. Okay. But if we need that data in some other point in the program in the future, let's say after the loop is over, then we can store it in some temporary variable. Okay, so it will temporarily remain in the memory as long as the program is running. After that, it will be deleted.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
या मैम बट हमने गर्ल्स सम बॉयज सम निकाल सकते हैं फ्लो चार्ट के थ्रू, तो क्या हम एवरेज भी निकाल सकते हैं
Anything,
और
anything.
निकाल
Process, activity
कैसे
boxes,
बी
any
किताब
kind
वाला
of arithmetic
मैसेज कर दे
operations.
बनो ऊ दोसर लई हैं दोसर लई
Ashish,
मतलब
please mute
ऊ
yourself.
कोटा के लई कोटा
I'm gonna have to mute. Wait. Okay. Yeah. So any arithmetic operations that you want to do, average, sum, difference, anything. Okay. So you just modify the flowchart accordingly. Just make sure that whenever you are doing some kind of processing, it is always inside a process box. Just don't mix up the boxes. That's it. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Now we are going to introduce data types. So like I know now that most of you are familiar with what data types are.
Ma'am,
So yeah,
ma'am, did we get recordings of these videos, lectures?
yeah, all see, I won't be repeating this again. So let me tell you, all lectures are recorded. You can just go to the IITM BS Degree YouTube channel. Under that, you can find the CT Jan 2025 playlist. Inside that, you can find all the lectures. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So before we go into this, so you tell me what are the data types that you are aware of. I'll list them down.
Integer, float, double,
Okay. So we know int, we know
character,
float,
Integer, boolean,
string,
and characters and string.
character, boolean, string. Very good. So you know almost all of the data types that we are going to be using.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, these data types, for those who don't know, let me tell you. So whenever we are using a variable in a program or a pseudocode in our case, since throughout CT, we are just going to be writing pseudocode. Pseudocode is what? Instead of writing in a particular programming language, pseudocode uses basic English to write that same program. Okay, it's more like writing an algorithm. So it just tells you what the program will be doing. Okay, it's very like structured. It's not like we are just writing in a paragraph. No, there is a structure to writing pseudocode, but it's plain English, so anyone can understand it. Even anyone like who is not familiar with any programming language, they also can understand it. So whenever in a program we are using any variable, right? Like we used sum, count, boy sum, girl sum. These all are variables. Okay, so every variable needs to have some data type. Like count. Count is storing what type of data. So data type is nothing but what type of data a variable stores. Count was storing what? 1, 2, 3, 4, like this, all integer types of data. So count will have data type int. Right. Now, if you have some decimal point in your data, right? Let's say some data is storing, some variable is storing the average marks of a class. Now, average is what? Sum by count. Right. So we sum the data and then we divide it by the count of the number of data items. So average can easily be having decimal points in it. Let's say some average is 15.5. So this you cannot store in integer. As soon as a decimal point enters, you have to mark it as a float variable. So whenever let's say I want to store the average value in some variable called AVG. So when I initialize this variable, I will initialize it as a float variable. So float AVG. Okay. Now, Double is also one more. So double has a greater range of values that it can store. Okay, it can also store your decimal points and all. Now, CAD is what? Anyone? What is CAD?
Ma'am, alphanumeric characters.
Right. So CAD can contain how many characters? A CAD type of variable?
Only one.
Only one. Right. So whenever we have a character type variable, inside that, the data will be like this. Let's say I have a CAD type variable, let's say X. So inside X, I can store this. I can store one. Any alphanumeric single character you can store. But CAD cannot store more than one character. So what if I want more than one character? Then I will use string data type that can store more than one alphanumeric strings, like
Ma'am, what about
alphanumeric
special
characters.
characters?
Sorry?
What about special characters?
Yeah, you can use. See, I will go into the range. Okay, then I'll tell you what each of these data types can store. Okay, right
Okay.
now I'm just giving a bird's eye view. So Boolean is what? Boolean just stores true or false. Okay, it has only two types of things it can store, either true or false. So any type of true false value is known as a Boolean value. Okay, if I have a variable A and I introduce it as a Boolean type of variable, then A can either store true or it can store false, nothing else. So all variables will have their data types and we will mention those data types in the program. Okay, whenever you initialize a variable, you have to give the data type first. Now, why we need this is because, see, in week 1, I'll tell you this, that whenever if I don't know if anyone has tried solving the practice assignment. So you will find questions on sanity of data. So sanity of data means what? That whether, in very simple terms, if I tell you, let's say if I have a variable A, which is of integer type, okay, and inside that I try to store my name. So my name is a string type of data. So this is not a sane data. Inside an integer type variable, you can only store integer type data, right? So there can be questions where we will give you this match the following, okay, like which variable can be mapped to what data. Or you might have to identify that which of these rows are carrying not like data that is not sane. Okay, so sanity of data based on these questions might come in your quiz 1 also, qualifier quiz 1, whatever you're giving. Okay, so this is a bit of an important topic. So we organized our data set into cards, right? Each storing one data item. So each card had a number of elements. So like I said that in our course, we'll be dealing with data sets that will have cards, right? Like in sports data set, we had all these cards that had student information. So each card can have a number of elements in it, right? It can have marks, it can have name, bill, anything. So what is the different type of data that can be found in these cards? We can find numeric type of data, like numbers in case of marks, right? In case of sequence numbers, these are all numbers, numeric type data. Again, we can have someone's name, some in shopping bills data set, we can have some item that we purchased. These are a sequence of characters. So these are the different types of data that we might have. Now, we observed that there were restrictions on the values of each item that each item can take, each element can take. For example, if I take the marks, okay, if I from scores data set, if I take marks, this marks field, it can have values from 0 to 100. A student cannot score marks in negative, right? And he cannot score marks that are above 100 because 100 is the full mark. So the restriction for marks field or marks element is what? 0 to 100. So it has to only store data in the range of 0 to 100. Name also cannot have any funny characters means what? Can someone's name have an ampersand? No. Can someone's name have a percentage? No. So these won't be present. So obviously every field in a data set, field means what? Name is a field, marks is a field, city is a field, what else? Sequence number is a field, anything. Okay, any representation of data is a field. So every field of data will have some restrictions on them, that what values they can take. Like I told you, in case of data types, that's what we are going to come to eventually. But how you can relate is that like int can only store integer type data. Just like that marks can only store data lying between 0 and 100, nothing outside of it. Now, constraints on the kinds of operations that can be performed. So there are also constraints placed on what type of operation you can perform with certain data. So if I have marks data, marks will have what? Any value from 0 to 100. Now, if you have this numeric type of value, what operations can you perform? What makes sense is that, let's say, like I did in that flowchart, we found sum of mathematics marks of all boys, right? So what did we do? Addition of marks. Now, addition of marks is possible to be performed, but multiplication is also possible. These are numeric data, but multiplication of marks is not a same type of data that we will get. What will you get by multiplying the marks of all boys? It will be a huge number, but is it some sane data? Are we gaining anything from that? Any important information we can extract out of it? No. Right. So that also has to matter, like what information makes sense and what doesn't. So we will only perform those operations which will give us some sane data or data out of which we can extract some information. Right. If I find sum of maths marks of all boys, then I can just divide it by the number of boys in the class and I'll get an average maths marks. From that, I can understand what is the average performance of the class. But multiplying or dividing the marks themselves, they don't make any sense.
Ma'am, but
Then-
average does make sense, ma'am, but
Yeah, average does. That's what I said. That why we are doing addition. That if I find the sum of maths marks and then divide it by number of boys in the class, that will give me an important information, like what is the average maths marks of the class. But
yes,
by
ma'am, but we
multiplying
will
the
also
marks,
performing division also, ma'am.
no, by division, when I said division, I mean that if you divide some boy's marks with another boy's mark, that will not make sense, right? I'm talking about the data itself.
Oh, ma'am.
So we
Yes,
will
ma'am.
only perform those operations which will give us some kind of same important information. Now we can compare one name with another to generate a Boolean type value. That means if two people have the same name, right? Let's say some person has their name stored in C1 variable, some person has their name stored in C2 variable. Now I want to check if these two names are same. So I will check, is C1 equals to C2? If yes, that means in case of Boolean, yes means what?
True.
Yes means true. So that means they have the same name. False means they don't have the same name. So this is also some kind of a data that's giving us some information that if true, that means that there are people in the class who have duplicate names. Right.
Yes, ma'am.
But what will I get by adding a name with another? If I concatenate these two strings, concatenate means just add one string to the end of another. That won't make any sense. So there are always constraints placed on what kind of values a field can take and what kind of operations that can be performed on those values. So only those operations and those values we will take which will make some sense to us, right? Arbitrary operations or values we cannot take. So now this is the background. So this leads us to what is a data type. Now, by associating data type, or simply we can call it a type, with a data element, so we can tell the computer that how do we intend to use that data element. Whenever I assign, let's say I have a variable A, and I assigned it the data type integer. So as soon as the computer reads this line that, okay, A is an integer type of variable, it will have an idea that what type of values can this variable take, right? It can take any values that are in integer format. It also has an idea that what type of operations can I perform on this value. So I can perform any type of arithmetic operations. On an integer type of data, you won't perform string operations, right? So this is why we have data type, so that the computer can have an idea of what a variable will be storing and what kind of operations we might perform on that variable. Now, when we specify that a variable is of a specific type, like integer, character, string, so we are describing the constraints basically that are placed on that variable, right? So two types of constraints that we are going to place is one is of the type of value it can store and another is the type of operations that we can perform on it. So before we go any further, any doubt till now? Anyone?
Ma'am, I have
Ma'am,
a
the
question
float
for
data
practice
type.
assignment.
Yeah, practice assignment I'll take. Okay, at the end of the session, we'll take the practice assignment. For till this, whatever we have discussed, do you have any doubt till now? Anyone?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, could you explain the float data type in a more simple way?
Float means any value that has any numeric type of value that will have decimal point in it. That will come under the range of float. Now, float also has a range of values that it can take. Okay, So if you want, like, if you are more interested in knowing about this, you can just Google the various ranges that different data types can take. So these are actually very big values. Like int can take a huge number of values. Okay, so it can take positive, negative integers. So it will go back a huge range, like it's some 5-digit number. Okay, some negative 5-digit number to some positive 5-digit number. That is the range of int. So like this float also has some range, but double has a bigger range. Okay, so these things are all available online. No need to memorize those ranges or anything, but for your information, if you're interested, you can check that out. Now, when we come to the basic data types, now we will discuss some of it. So the first data type that we come to is Boolean. Yeah, are you saying something?
What do you mean by double?
Double is also data type. See, double has a bigger range than this float. Okay. So if you want me to tell you the range of double, so double has a huge range. It's actually like some 1.7e to 1.7e to the power minus 300 something, as far as I remember. It's a huge range. It's in exponents. Okay. So no need to know what the range is, but you should know that double can also take decimal point values. Okay. So float also takes decimal point values. Double also takes decimal point values. So why do we need both? Because float can have a much smaller range. If you exceed that range, then that value cannot be stored in a float type variable. So that's when we use double. Okay. So both of them store similar type of data, except double has a bigger range. Okay. So double is capable of holding about 15,
But
I think around 15 integers after the decimal point. Okay.
double will not
Understood?
store integer, ma'am.
Double will
Not store integers, only integers.
Okay, so there are different types of double also. Okay, we won't be discussing that, but if you want, you can check out, like you can have an int double or a float double. Okay. So in case if we are having a float type of double, okay, in that case it can take up to 15 to 16 values after the decimal point. So in case of float, that is a much smaller range. It cannot take that many values after the decimal. Okay. But for CT, I would say that it is not required. Like if you want to understand or know about these things, sure, you can check it out on the internet, but no need to memorize these ranges. Okay, for int, maybe for the basic data types, you can memorize. Like for int, for float, for char, for these you can memorize. Okay. But again, there are more classifications. Like, are you using a 2-bit int? Are you using a 4-bit? It all depends. Okay. So, 1 second. So in case of your long int, you'll have 4 bytes. In case of normal int that we use is 2 bytes. So int can take some like normal int that we use is of 2 byte size. So that has minus 32,600 some 700 something to plus 32,700 something. This is the range of the values that int can store. Okay. Similarly, just find out for double float. Now,
Okay, ma'am, got it.
yeah. So now the basic data types that we will learn here. Let's start with Boolean. So you are already familiar. Boolean has only 2 values, true or false, right? So what type of operation can you perform on these values? Now we have 2 constraints. One is what value it can take. One is what operation we can perform on that value, right? So what values it can take, we know Boolean can only take true or false. Now operation means what? On Boolean value, what operation can you check? You can have 2 operations, either and or. Now how does this work? Let's say I can explain this better using a pseudocode, but since we haven't gone that far. So let's just take a basic example. Let's say A contains the value true. Okay. And B contains the value false. So these are both Boolean type variables. Right? Now, if let's say I have some if condition that has these 2 variables involved. So if I say A or B, that means when will this evaluate to true? Now, I don't know if you're familiar with and or these things.
Either one is true.
If
Right.
A is true or B is false, then it is true.
See, this is
If
the
either of
chart.
the option is true, then it will give the true or false.
Ma'am, you are asking and or by the conjunction and intersection?
Let me write this. Okay, that will be better for you to understand. Now, this table that I will write will show you how it works. Okay, now A and B can both take two values each. Either they can be true or they can be false. So how many combinations can we have?
Either A, either B, or both.
So
3.
it can have 2 power n combinations where n is 2. That means 4 combinations are possible. So either A is true, B is false. This is one combination, right? So if one of them is true, then OR operation will give the value true. If A is true and B is also true, this will also evaluate to true. If A is false and B is true, since one of them is true, it will evaluate to true. And if both are false, yeah.
Ma'am, basically it is a truth table.
Yeah,
Yes,
truth table,
ma'am.
exactly. That's the
Yeah.
time. It's a truth table. So we have different types of operations, right? If you're familiar, and, or, or, all these operations that they are not.
Yeah, we should be
So,
familiar with the truth table.
yeah. So just go through the truth table for all the operations once. It will be easier for you, even though mostly we are going to be using and, or, and not. Okay, these three are going to be used in CT. So if both are false, then only that's the only case in which OR evaluates to false. So this is the truth table for OR. Now let's write the truth table for AND. So A and B. A, B, and A and B. That is, if I do AND operation on these two variables, then if A and B are both true, then it will evaluate to true. If A is true and B is false, it will evaluate to false. If A is false, B is true, then also it will be false. And if both are false, then obviously it will be false. So this is kind of like your union intersection thing, right? Like what happens whenever we say OR? OR means that either A or B. Or if both are there, that's also fine. In case of AND, let's try understanding with a Venn diagram. If this is A and this is B, right? Then OR means what? All of this. Correct. Where A is true, where B is true, where both are true. So all of these places, OR is going to give you a true value. But AND will give a true value only when A and B are both true. That is when the intersection happens. Only this part. Is this clear now? True and false thing?
Yeah.
Same thing is common, I guess.
Yeah. So in case of
Is there one more connotation to and or, like multiplication and addition?
No.
No, it's more like if you know the set operations, right? Union intersection. That's a better way of understanding this. So
Better
whenever
you
we talk,
visualize it. The truth table learn कर लो अच्छा रहेगा.
yeah, look, easier way of remembering this is if you're encountering truth tables for the first time or you are not familiar with set theory. So the thing is that whenever we use OR operations, trick is what? Only time it will evaluate to false is when both items are false. Other than that, in all cases, it will evaluate to true. Only when both items are false, it will give a false value. And the opposite is true in case of AND. So only when both items are true, it will give a true value. In all other cases, it will evaluate to false. Okay, so it's kind of like you can say it's like complement of one another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
how does OR become union? Can you explain?
See, if I say that this entire set A, okay, this in the Venn diagram, this circle that I drew for A, this entire part is where A is true. Okay. And this entire set for B is where B is true. And this intersection, this part in the middle, where they overlap, this is where both A and B are true. So in case of OR, what happens? Whether either A is true or either B is true or both are true, OR will evaluate to true in all the cases. So it is like a union, right? True will happen when there is a union. So union, why I'm saying? Because you can take either A or B or both. That's what we know as union, right? The entire set. And whenever we say intersection, so that is what we are representing by AND, that when both values are true. So only the point where they overlap, only the intersection part is true, in case of AND operation. Okay. Now, if this is your universal set, that is everything outside of A and B is in the universal set. So you can think of it like that A and B are both false here. Okay. Only inside the circle they are true. So you can say that when both are false, then it will evaluate to false. Right? So everything outside of the union. If this is complex for you to understand, just think of it like this. When both variables are false, only then OR will give false. And only when both variables are true, AND will give true. Okay. Now these are the only two operations that we are going to perform on Boolean type of variables. Now, next is your integer type. So like I
Hello,
said,
ma'am.
the actual, yeah.
I have a doubt in Boolean type dataset. Ma'am, how to identify A is true or false in question?
That will be given to you.
Some
Okay.
values will be given or something.
Some value will be given or whatever. That depends on the question actually. Whatever the
Okay.
question is, you'll be able to evaluate what the variables are storing, true or false. Okay.
Okay.
Mostly you will see that there is some flag variable which stores false or true in the beginning. Later it will be manipulated further based on conditions. But anyways, you will get the values from the problem itself.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, anyone else is asking something?
Ma'am,
Yeah, go on.
ma'am, I have a doubt in practice assignment.
See, practice all kinds of assignments. This is for every class of mine, I'm telling you. How it will work is first I will complete whatever material we have for the week, okay? So that nothing is left. And then at the end, I will definitely take all your questions, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now next we have integer. So like I said that integer can be of different types, okay? But we won't use all those data types because we are not going into any particular programming language here. But if you start with like alongside if you are trying to learn some language, let's say C. So you'll see that integer can be subdivided into int, long int, all these different parts. So integer, a 2-byte integer that we usually take, okay? So that can store a value that has range from minus 32,000 something to plus 32,000 something. This is the range of values it can take. Okay. So integer can take any negative integer or any positive integer. So for CT, that's all you need to know. That integer type variables can store any negative or positive integers, including 0. Okay. So this is range of values. Now what operations can we perform? Obviously, since it is integer type, any arithmetic operation, any basic 4 arithmetic operations, plus, minus, multiplication, divide. Right. So there are constraints on division. So for a result to be of integer type, okay, so the first number has to divide the second number. So if I take, let's say, 21 as the first number, fine, that is the integer type. And let's say I take 8 as the second number. So A and B are both integer type variables. Now let's say I want to store the result in a third integer type variable C. So C should be storing whatever A divides B generates. But this will generate what? It will generate 2.6, some type of decimal value. So that cannot be stored in integer because integer does not support decimal type values. So that is one constraint, that in case of division, if we are storing the result in an integer type of variable, then we must make sure that the second number completely divides the first number and no decimal point is there. Okay. Or we can change the definition to take only the value before the decimal point. And we can like, but that is typecasting. It's better not to discuss it now. So what we can do is we can change the definition to take only the quotient and drop the remainder, right? So if I do 21 divided by 8, then you will have 2 as the quotient and 5 as the remainder. So we can just drop this off and just store 2. That is not a very accurate thing to do. We don't use it. But yeah, that is one thing. So
Ma'am,
mainly
can't
what
we
you have,
really-
sorry?
Can't we round off the decimals?
Yeah. See, you can do that by typecasting. Okay. So there is something called typecasting where you can change the type of a variable from float to int. So let's say the variable was previously storing 2.6, but now you typecasted it into int. So it's now only storing the part before the decimal point, only the 2. Okay, but those things are like much advanced for this level, like when we are just introducing data types. So no need to bother about those. Everything is possible. Okay, if you want to learn, a lot of resources online you can check out. On Geeks for Geeks, you can check out, for example, if you want to know about typecasting. But what we want to do here is that in CT, it's a very basic course, nothing advanced. We will go to see advanced topics will come in your later on weeks, like week 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are advanced topics. But then also we are using like the same data types. Okay, no new data type will be introduced. So whatever data type I introduced now to you, that will be used throughout the course. Okay, so whenever we are trying to store the result of a division in an integer type variable, we must make sure that the second number fully divides the first and that there are no remainders, because integer type cannot store decimal type value. Okay, so this is your Boolean and integer. Now integer can also have these comparison operators, right? I can compare whether 3 is greater than 2, whether 4 is equal to 4, right? So any comparison type operator is also valid in case of integer. So integer can have all of these different types of operations done on them, arithmetic as well as comparison.
मैम boolean type data type जो होते हैं उनमें भी तो comparison हो सकता है greater
Yeah,
than
yeah, you can actually, not greater than, you can have only one type that is equal. Okay, so if two variables are storing A and B are both storing true, then you can check whether A equals to B. So that will give you either a true result or a false result. So that will also come later on. But yeah, one comparison can be done in case of Boolean also, that is the equal to comparison.
So ma'am, we cannot like ask question if 2 is greater than 3 is true or false. We can't do this. We can just write equals to
Yeah,
equal.
see, yeah, single equals to operator, when we write pseudocode, you'll see single equals to is assignment operator. Okay. Here it is written because in mathematical terms, equal to means equal to. But in case of programming, double equals to means exactly equal, and this double equals to is your basic comparison operator to check equality. But single equals to is an assignment operator. That's how we assign values to variables.
Okay, ma'am.
So yeah, Boolean can also have this equal to comparison.
Can you please repeat this double equal to and equal to thing?
Look, whenever in case of arithmetic, if we speak, then single equals to, we have known all our lives that it means something is equal to something else. But in case of programming, this single equal to is an assignment operator. Okay, it's how we assign values to a variable. Like A is equal to 6. That means 6 is the value assigned to variable A.
Okay.
A contains the value 6. But if I talk about comparison, let's say A contains 6 and B also contains 6. Now, if I want to check whether A is equal to B, then I will write A equals to B or not.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so double equals to is your comparison operator.
Got it.
Ma'am,
So
so
this, yeah,
this kind of like we check this condition that whether A is strictly equal to B or not.
right.
Okay.
So that will give you a Boolean result, true or false. If it is equal, then true. If not, then false. So basically, this type of comparison will happen inside an if block. Okay, an if statement, conditional statement. That if A is equal to B, then we will perform some block of code. If it is not true, then we won't perform it. Okay, we'll come to that when I do pseudocodes. So yeah, this is an important thing. Please remember this because a lot of people mess up in this part. They think that this is the comparison operator. That's not how it works. Anyway, throughout CT, you won't have to write any pseudocode.
Excuse
That's
me.
one thing. Yeah.
Ma'am, in integer, in division, some cases we get reminder. So we can
That will be
ignore
stored in float type variable.
or float.
Yeah, like if you are performing an
For
average.
example,
So
ma'am,
average,
for
yeah, go
example,
on.
if we divide 22 by 7, its a remainder comes 1. Then we have to store 1 or we have to
No,
leave it.
think of it like take a decimal point, right? 22 divided by 7. So if you
Okay.
do that, so it will be 3 point something, right? If we keep on
Yes, ma'am.
dividing till, let's say, 2 places after decimal. So this is the quotient that you want to store, the 2 places after decimal, the whole thing. So that you will store in a float type of variable.
Okay, ma'am. The difference between Boolean and float is this only, no?
Boolean is totally different from float. Integer and float difference is decimal is there in
Okay,
float, and
yeah,
in
yeah.
integer there is no decimal. Okay, Boolean is true or false.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So listen, these are all, like, if you are from a background where you have gone through these things before this course, then it's easier for you. If people are coming from a completely different background, right? Because people are coming from every background into this foundational level. So no worries if you cannot remember all of this in the first go. Okay, just keep on going through the lectures, through the slides, it will become easier. Once you start writing or practicing pseudocode or practicing questions, these practice assignments, that's why we say that please solve practice assignments for every week. Okay, that will make it much easier. So, right, what were we doing? Yeah, next is character data type. So character can take what type of values? You only told me that it can take alphanumeric characters, right? 1 second. So character can take capital A to Z, small a to Z. It can also take any number from 0 to 9. It can also take special characters. All of this is possible, but remember, char type of variable can only store one character. It cannot store both A and B. It will only store A or B. Okay, now if I want to store A and B together, that will be a string type of variable. As soon as it exceeds one character, it will become a string. Okay, character will store only one character. It can be alphanumeric, it can be special character.
No,
So what
ma'am.
are the operations? Yeah.
Ma'am, if there is a data given which is numeric, then should we consider it as a integer data or should we consider
No,
it as a
character,
character data?
see, if I write like this, A equals to 1, this is integer. If I write A equals to 1 inside quotes, this is character.
Okay, ma'am.
So this quotation will tell you. Okay.
And ma'am, I do have one more doubt.
Hmm.
Ma'am, in the set of special character, do the greater than, less than, and the equal to, these three comparison also comes?
Anything you can take, any of the characters.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Character is a very open data type. You can check out its range online. It's given.
Ma'am,
Okay.
one more thing. If you write A equals to 1A in the columns, तो तब क्या होगा?
Like
तब भी
here,
वो
like this.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
also a string. Okay. Anything that's greater than one single character is a string.
Okay, so now it's a string.
Now it's a
The
string.
one above it is a character.
Yeah, this is integer, this is character, this is string.
Okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, what is the result of a string or the operation?
String operations, you can do string matching. Okay. So we can check whether two strings are similar or not. A lot of problems are there. There are string rotation problems. So just for example, this is a fun thing. So just see this. If I have A, B, C, D, E, this is a string, correct? Let's say I store this string in S1 variable. This is a string type variable. And in S2, I'm storing this C, D, E, A, B. Okay, this is also a string. Now a question might come. See, this is actually a very popular question in terms of basic placement exams also, that whether you can check a string is a rotation of another string or not. So you can check that CDEAB is just a rotation of this one, right? Rotation means what? A, B, C, D, E. Now if I continue writing this 2 times, again I write A, B, C, D, E. Can you find the second string in this concatenated string? It is present here, right? So this is the string rotation. So this is the basic way of solving this problem. This is a very interesting problem, that string rotation. You have to check whether a string is a rotation of another string or not. So the easiest way of doing is that take the primary string and concatenate it with itself. That is, write the same string twice. And then the string rotation that you're checking for, just check that whether that string is present in this big string or not. If it is present, then it's a rotation. If it is not, then it's not a rotation. So the order of the elements cannot change. Now, if I say S3 is another string which contains C, B, A, E, D, is this a rotation? Can you find this string anywhere in this big string?
No, no.
I mean, together. You have to find it together.
No, no.
Okay. No, right? So that means it's not a rotation. So this
Ma'am,
type of
basically,
operations you can perform on strings.
excuse me, ma'am, basically the operation only we can perform in string is equal to.
Yeah, mainly we will be using it for that only. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, there are other things that you can do with strings, okay, but that is for advanced level, so I'm not discussing that. So this
For
is one particular
current,
good example. Yeah. Yeah, you're asking something?
I was just saying that for this current course, we have just string operation is equal to.
Yeah, that is going to be enough mainly. See, one more thing is that I might want to check that whether a particular character is present inside a string, right? So in case of this string S1, A, B, C, D, E, so if I want to check that whether Z is present in this string or not, so in that case, I have to check it with every character inside this string and then come up with the answer whether it's present or not. That can be one more thing you can check.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Yeah. So string operations, see, mainly equal. Okay. So mainly we will equate two strings and see whether they're equal or not. So what, I'm sorry, this is character, right? We're discussing character, not string. So in case of character, that means single character, single alphanumeric or special character, you can just match and check whether two character type variables are containing the same data or not. So that you can do by comparison operator. But in that case also you have to use this double equal to, okay? This can be a little misleading. So always, whenever you're checking for comparison, always use double equal to. Okay, any doubts so far? Anyone?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, any character, any alphabetic character could be a character. Alphabet could be a character.
Yes, anything.
Special character also included.
Yes, all of these special characters. See, it's not possible to write all of them, so we have just written a few here.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next lecture. This is 1.7, right? Wait.
Ma'am, dates come in the string data type, I guess.
Date is a subtype.
It's a
I'll tell you
subtype.
about dates. Wait.
Marks, dates, and this all are of subtypes.
Yeah, so here we will discuss subtypes only. Okay, now, so you understood that main things that we'll be dealing with in CT is of integer, boolean, and character. Okay, strings also will be used much less compared to these. So these three are the main data types we'll be dealing with. Okay, not even float. We don't use float in CT. When you go to learn programming languages, you can learn about those. So subtype, now what is a subtype? So subtype is anything that we can derive from something. Okay, just for a little example, this is not a proper subtype or anything, just for an example. If I have your date of birth, right? From there I can derive your age. Correct. So age is a subtype. This is not a practical example, just saying, for example. Okay. So
A
if something
practical
that you can
example
derive,
could be.
yeah, we'll come to that. See, anything that you can derive from a proper data type is a subtype. Like if I have an integer data type that we just discussed, so we know what is the range of values integers can take. A long way towards the negative line and a long way towards the positive line, and with 0 also. Right. So these are the values these are the values integer can take. Negative values, positive values, and 0. All numeric. Now from here, what type of data type can we derive? So we can have a sequence number field. Like I said, in scores dataset, we have sequence number associated with each card. But what is the range there? So you will see if you check out the data set itself, you'll see that all cards have positive sequence numbers, right? There are no negatives. So see, even though the range of values that sequence number can take, it is 0 to any maximum number, let's say 10,000, 100,000, anything.
All positive
Right,
number.
they're all positive. But they still are a subset of the range of values that integer can take. So
Yes.
integer can also take all these values, but it can also take negative values. So it is a bigger set. So sequence number is a set that is derived from that. Right, so sequence number is a data type that is derived from another data type. So sequence number becomes a subtype. Okay, now
Yes, marks.
one more thing is that none of those integer operations will make any sense for, it's not always necessary that if you're deriving a subtype from a particular data type, that the operations that are allowed on that particular data type, like in integer, we can perform any arithmetic operation. But the derived subtype, that is sequence number, in that it doesn't make any sense to perform addition. Why will I want to find a sum of sequence numbers, right? It is not a same data. Like I'm not gaining anything out of it. So it's not always true that all those operations will be applicable to subtype also. Okay. It's just I'm deriving some things from the original data type.
Ma'am, is the sequence number and marks are same? Because if we take in marks out of 100,
In marks, what happens is that the range is even stricter. So it's 0 to 100. Max was whatever we wanted it to be. It can be as big as we want.
and the difference could be that in sequence we cannot perform multiplication, addition, but in marks we can perform
Right.
addition and
So in
subtraction.
marks also, when we go, see, it carries two of those original operations, addition, subtraction. That makes sense. But we are not using multiplication, division in marks. That doesn't make sense. But in case of sequence number, none of these operations are needed. Again, in case of marks, you can use the comparison operators to check if some student has scored greater than some other student. Right. That's also possible. So marks is also another subtype. So see, subtypes, what is the property of subtypes? That the range of values that they can take is going to be a subset, proper or improper subset of the original data type. So what is a proper subset?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
can we use comparison
Fine,
operator
sir.
on a sequence number data type?
If two sequence numbers are same, although that will never happen because in the data set itself, you know that all sequence numbers are unique. That's why there is no sense in checking that.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Marks, you can check whether two marks are same or not. So, like I said, that always a subtype is going to be a proper or an improper subset of the original data type. Mostly it's a proper subset. So proper means that it is not exactly equal to the original range, but it is a subset of the original range.
Can
And improper
understand in
means that it can be equal
mathematics
or
term.
less. Yeah, mathematics term, basically. So these are the subtypes from integer that you can get. Now, what type of operations on marks you can perform? You only said addition, subtraction, correct? Multiplication, division do not make sense. You can also perform these comparison operations that I said. Check whether marks are greater, less, equal to. This actually will come a lot when we solve questions. Okay. So most of the questions from scores data set will be based on these operations only. Now, another subtype that we can have is count, right? Like we did the count of the number of cards. So that is also a subtype of, yeah, count is used a lot. So count is also a subtype of integer because it is taking integer type values. Starting from 0, it can go up to anything. Okay, usually we don't use negative values in count. Your counting means it will increase, right? So no negative values starting from 0 up to anything. Now count can also have all of these operations that Marx was having. You can add counts. Like when do we add counts? Let's say I want to find the number of boys and number of girls. Let's say I want to find the count of number of boys who have scored more than 15 maths and number of girls who have scored more than 15 maths. So in that case, you can find count separately for both and then add them, right? Similarly, you can do subtraction, any of the comparisons, anything. But multiplication, division do not make sense here also. Now character can have, yeah.
In some cases, we are given the range, and there was one question where we were asked that if the total is more than 250, and second one was
right.
Yeah, that 250 was exactly 250 will be in which of the options? In 250, more than 250, or 200 to 250 range? In which we will count that?
I know which question you're talking about. So this question, every term we get this question. So
Yes,
this is the trick actually. So first tell me, is this a graded question?
Yes, ma'am. But that was the first
Okay,
time.
let me just give you a little hint.
Question
I
number
won't
8
say all
is
of it. Just a little hint. Is equal to anywhere mentioned in the question. What is the question asking?
It's asking that if the total is more than 250, then increment A.
Right. If it is less than 250, then increment something else. Is it asking you to increment some variable in case it is equal to 250?
No,
No, right?
yeah.
So yeah. So there is no point in thinking of that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. There are only
That's
two
the trick
options.
here.
Either
Yeah.
this or either this.
Yeah. Whatever the question is asking, just do that much. You don't need to care about who has scored 250. That is not in the question. Okay, whatever just the question is asking. So every
Thanks.
time this question, last
Was a
time
great,
someone,
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if
I
great
it's
agree.
250 girl, we have to leave that.
yeah, that is not counted.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a great hint for me.
Yeah, okay. So because see why I told you this, I'm not supposed to, but I'm telling you this because in one term, one student accused that this question was wrong. So it's not wrong. It's just you have to think like that.
It
Okay.
was in June, maybe
Yeah,
June.
I think it was in last year sometime. It was. Anyways,
Yeah.
okay. So characters. Now character can have what type of subtype? See, gender is one. Okay. Why gender is a subtype? You'll see that if you go to the course data set, right? So there is a field called gender. It has only two values, M or F. M is male, F is female. So these are single characters, right? So they come under character only. So it is a subtype of character. So gender is also a subtype. Now it can take two values, M or F.
Ma'am, difference between this character and previous subtype in data types character, what is the difference between these two characters?
So character data type and the actual character data type, it can take any alphanumeric character, right? Or any special character. But in case of gender, it can take only two values, M or F.
Okay.
Okay. Now what operations
This
can we
is the
yeah.
character. This is the specific character of a person.
Yeah, this is see, gender is a field that is present in the scores data set. So this gender field is a subtype of character data
Ma'am,
type.
I am asking of character. Oh, yeah, I got it.
Okay. So gender can also store just two types of character values, either M or F. Now
Ma'am,
what
but in some
operations?
cases, some encoding, we change it into 0 or 1, so it would be counted as the
Yeah, that
integer.
depends on whatever value your field is taking. Okay, we are discussing in terms of our data set. So in our data set, gender has M or F.
This is
You can have
basically
anything.
pseudocode
Yeah, somewhere
only.
it is
No,
also, it could be also mentioned that it is written in male and female.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
it
sure.
counted
It
as
can be
string.
0, 1. Yeah, then
All right.
it's going to be an integer type data. Okay.
All right.
this
No,
all
ma'am,
are
a small
related to
doubt.
pseudocode only.
What is question mark
Question
operation?
mark, we are asking that what operation do you think we might be performing? Okay.
No, this is
So
not operation.
this operation is equal to. So we can perform a comparison on gender. Of course, no numerical operations we cannot perform here. Character data type also, you only get one operation. Overall is a comparison. So gender is a subtype of that. So it can also
This
have
is
at
similar
most
to
that.
Boolean. This is similar to
Yes,
Boolean
yes,
data.
similar to Boolean. But Boolean, you can also do that and or those things. But in case of character, we cannot. Okay.
But in
Now,
Boolean, you only perform only one equal to.
Yeah, ma'am, I have a question.
no, Boolean, you have and or operations also. I explained that. Yeah.
I have a question,
Yeah,
ma'am.
what's the question?
Yeah. So why count cannot be the subtype of character?
Because count is storing numeric type of data. Can you perform
Character.
arithmetic operations on character type? If I take, let's say, if I do count, as you're saying, that count is, let's say, a char type of variable count. Okay. Now inside this, I can store 0 initially, right? This is what you're saying. Now, can I increment this? Is it possible to do a +1 on this?
Character itself defined
Character,
that
you cannot do any arithmetic operations, right? Only if it is integer type, you can increment or decrement or anything. So count has to be an integer type data. Clear?
Okay.
Okay. See. Now string, let's come to string subtypes. So string is any sequence of characters, right? Anything can be in a string. What operations do we perform in string data type?
Ma'am, in a string, there would be a limit of sequence or not?
There is a limit to every data type. Okay, that's what I said, that every data type has a range that it can take. So that depends on the size of the variable. So string, if you're using a string variable in C, so that variable is allotted a particular memory space. So it can only take up to that range. Okay. So in this case, you don't have to worry about that because it's not like we're taking huge strings here. Let's say a person's name is a string. So that's a very small string. So strings are made up of characters only, right? So what operations can we perform in a string? So you can perform equal to, you can check, Like you can check whether two strings are same. You can check whether a character is present in a string, like I said, so character in string or not. Then the result type of both of these operations is Boolean. So if I give you this string, let's say A, B, C, D, E, and I am asking you to check whether Z is present in this string. So once you check that, then you will have either a true answer or a false answer, right? Either Z is present or not present. So the result type is Boolean. Similarly, if you're checking if string S1 is equal to S2, if both the strings are same. So either it is true or it is false. So in both cases of these both operations, result type will always be Boolean. Now, the subtype that can come from strings is names, like I said. So name is a subtype. Subtype why? Because does name contain any special characters? No. So name will only contain alphabets, no numericals also, numeric characters also not there. But whatever value that names can take, those values string can also take. But string can take even more values. So string is the bigger set, names is the subset.
Yes, ma'am. That's why I was asking that is there any limit of a sequence or not in string?
Yeah, there is limit to everything. Every data type has limits. Yeah. But we are not going to discuss that because that's a whole range, like not required. That is not required almost anywhere these days. But yeah, names, the main thing that you need to know is that the parent data type has to have a range that is bigger than the subtype or equal to the subtype. That's it. Okay.
Ma'am,
If it's yeah.
in case of date, we can write it in both ways, like 22nd November or 22nd 11.
Date I will come just after this date is there. Okay. Date is a special type of data type. That's why I'm not discussing it right now. Let me come to that. I'll tell you.
And ma'am, in inverted comma, if integer is written, it is counted as a string. So is that the case? That will come in further classes, or we have to count it as a string or an integer? Because
If
inverted
in some
comma.
pseudocode, if you see that a variable A has been assigned some integer like this, then that means this is a character type.
All
Okay.
right, will not count it as a string.
No. If a single thing is given, a single alphanumeric character is given or any special character is given, it's a character. Okay. And if we want you to consider it as a string, we'll let you know in the question itself.
All right, all right.
Okay.
Ma'am, I
Now-
have a doubt. In the lecture, it is saying the string data type basically is something that is a sequence of characters. So its values are sequence of characters, and we do not put any restriction on the length of the sequence.
No, we don't. We don't.
Yes, ma'am.
But see, eventually when you go and check a string data type in C, okay, just make that search quickly if you have a phone or
That's what I
something.
was pointing that in the lecture, the professor has said
Okay,
that
yeah. If we are talking in context of C, you can think that strings can take any number of characters in it. Okay, if that makes it easier. I think that is more simple for you to understand. String can be
Yes,
of any
ma'am.
length. Okay, but character has one single character. That's not the only difference. Now, if I derive some subtype of string like names, then the operation becomes what? This equal to. Or even in names also you can check whether a particular alphabet is present in this name or not. That also you can do. Both cases, the result will be Boolean. Okay. Now, string, I can also get city as a subtype. Right? City, any city name is also a string.
Words, names.
So anything basically, any string you can take as a subtype. Words, yeah. If you check out the paragraph words dataset. So in words
Are there
dataset,
any other
every
sorry.
yeah,
Please
go
continue.
on.
So I was asking, are there any other operations that we can use in string apart from equal
No,
to?
in CT we won't discuss only these two.
Basically, we compare in a string. We
In
just only
string, you
compare.
do either comparison or you check whether a particular character is present in a string or not. Okay,
Oh,
these two are enough. So
Yeah, this single equals to, we are actually mean
yeah, actually it is
double.
double equals to. Okay, this
Okay.
is a arithmetic notation.
Okay.
In pseudocode, we will use double equal
We will
to.
use double equals to, yes, because there we need both the assignment operator as well as comparison operator. Otherwise, it will mix up. Okay, so you can also derive words from the string dataset. Similarly, just go through the words dataset. It has every card contains a word, particular word, its the part of speech of that word, letter count, these things are present. So that can be one subtype. Again, you can have category. This category comes from shopping bills data set. Okay, so
Yes, ma'am.
category of an item, or you can even say the category of a word, like which part of speech this word belongs to. So these are all coming under strings. Okay, just go through the data sets once properly. That will be good. Okay, so up to this, is it clear? Any doubt till now?
And
Can we
what
go to
is
the
the
next?
need of subtype? What is the need
Okay,
of
what is
subtype?
the need of subtype is because, see, when we deal with the data sets, right? So then you'll see that we need to deal with each of these fields, like date of birth is a field, or age is a field, name is a field. So when we work with these, so we are working with these proper subtypes only. Okay, we are not declaring that, okay, this is character type, this is integer type, this is string type. No, we are taking the field itself. So if we know that what subtype it is, then we can work with that value. Okay, this
Yes,
will be
ma'am.
better understood when we do the pseudocodes. Okay, that will be much, much better. Just bear with the first week because we have to discuss the basics now. From week 2, we will go into pseudocode. Okay. Even I think in week 1, the last lecture has some pseudocode in it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So should we go to the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we come to dates. Okay, now we have some more subtypes. So transforming values, let's see what that is. Integer, we are all clear now what range of values it can take, what kind of operations it can be, and what type of result it can give. Right. So in case of comparison operations, it will always give a Boolean result, true or false. In case of arithmetic operations, it will always give an integer result. Okay. Or that's what we will deal with in CT. Okay. Now from this integer, I can get a subtype called dates, like you are asking. So date actually has different components. Like it has a date,
Ma'am,
it has the actual day. Yeah.
is it possible in date value 0?
No, I
Okay.
will explain. Okay, let me tell you. So date can have the day, the month, the year. Okay, now think of it like this, that a year has how many days? 365, right?
But it will
But in
come
case of
under days.
leap year, I'm saying in case of leap year, we can have how many days? 366 days, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if I want to assign a value to each of those days, so I will start with the value 0. So 1st January is assigned the value 0. 2nd January is assigned the value 1. Like this, I will increment till I reach the last day of the year. If it is a leap year, then the last day will be the 365th day. If it is not a leap year, the last day will be a 364th day. Correct? Because 0 to 364 are 365 numbers in total when you start counting from 0. So this is the range of values. Okay. Now see, if I say print 0, that means 1st Jan. So with date, we don't have any operations that we can perform. Okay. We can have particular components of date. Even that also we don't deal with in CT much. So let's say if I assign, like I said, if I assign a value to every particular day of the year. So I know that if I want to print whatever value is assigned to 0, it will print 1st Jan. If I want to print whatever value is assigned to 31, it will print 1st Feb. Why 1st Feb? Because 30 means what? 30 value is 31st Jan. Right? 1st January is 0. 2nd January is 1. Like this, if I go, so 31st January is 30. Then 31 is what? 1st Feb.
Basically,
So
it's
just,
sorry.
yeah, no, go on.
Basically, it's are in the form of days only, na?
Yeah. Like, what can I say? Like, it's like we are taking the entire year. Okay. We're not taking the entire,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
day,
according to the
month,
month.
all these things. We're just taking all the days in the year. Okay.
But
So
in
it is a
case,
subtype of integer, but actual date data type is different. Okay. In CT, just to make it simpler, since we don't delve into much depth in here for data types. So here we have assigned just like a range of values to every day of the year, and we can just print them, or what we can do is we can just compare. Okay. So if I want to know that whatever value is the 0th day is equal to the whatever value is present, is greater than whatever value is present in the 1st day or not. So these are actually, they sound very like for lack of a better word, this sounds kind of dumb. Like, why would I want to do that? Obviously, one will have a greater value stored than zero, right? So these things can happen. Now, if you think of it in this perspective, let's just take the dates itself. Okay.
But ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. But there would be some cases in which only months are required, then zero would be included or not. If, for example, if
No,
there is
why I'm saying this is because see, I have to tell you everything in perspective of CT. In
Okay.
CT, we are not using this. Okay, this date data type is not going to be used much. It's just given to you to understand what it contains. Okay. Now, one small example we can have is that for the comparison operator, I'm saying, let's say I want to compare whether the value of the date that is stored in 1. So 1 stores what date? If 0 stores 1st January, so 1st. So 1 stores what? 2nd January, so 2nd. Or I can say 2. Right. Now, if I say what is the 33rd? 33 represents what? So we just saw that 30 represents 1st Jan, 31 represents 1st Feb, 32 represents 2nd Feb, 33 represents 3rd Feb. So this is one comparison that might happen, that this is 3rd Feb, so this is day 2 of month 1, this is day 3. So if you want to compare these 2 days, so obviously 3 is greater than 2. This is also not required. None of this will come. Okay, it's just a simple representation to show you that date also is a subtype of integer. That's it.
it's just for
Because
content and
whenever we write a date, like if I write today's date, 17/01/2025. So all of these are numerics, right? That's why these are coming from integer. That's what we want to tell you. But now if you learn a programming language, even let's say if I talk about SQL, in DBMS we use this language, structured query language. So their date is a different data type. Okay, date is a
yes,
data
ma'am,
type
that
of
why
its
I
own.
was asking.
Yeah. But in CT we cannot make that distinction because we don't go into that. Okay. So for now, all you need to know is date is a subtype of integer.
Ma'am,
Now,
how come result comes in string?
if you print it, if I want to print what is the first day, so it will print 2nd Jan. This is a string.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Now,
Ma'am,
if I take marks, yeah.
ma'am, why there is any reason that we are starting from zero? Why we can also start from one? Why we are starting from zero? Is there any
See, this is
reason?
just a convention. Okay. It's just
In
a
terms of
convention.
code and pseudocodes, it's a
Whenever we
rule.
whenever we do an array or any list of elements, whenever we do an indexing, the first element is always indexed as the 0th element. Okay, that's why we are starting that the first day is the 0th day. Okay, you can start with the 1 also, not a problem.
In counts also, we are using G as a
Count
initial.
is why we are using 0 in count is because when you're counting something, unless you see the first element, you cannot assign it 1. 1 means we have already seen an element. That's why whenever you do marks like sum or count, these type of variables always have to be assigned 0 in the beginning. Okay. So initialization will be 0 for certain variables. Now marks is also a subtype of integer, right? Marks, so we know 0 to 100. Now fractional marks, it is saying, what if someone has scored 62.5? In that case, what do you do? So dealing with fractional values now, so we can use another basic type of real numbers called float. So everyone knows set of real numbers contains all types of numbers, right? Any decimal number, anything. So, but our values are going to typically be only up to 2 decimal places. So we won't go beyond that. Okay. In our
There is a limit in float.
Yeah, in float there is a limit, but in CT particularly, I'm saying we won't go beyond 2 values after the decimal point. So let's say some student has scored 75.25. So there are some constraints for float values also. Now, what if we just multiply the fractional number by 100, like we did as kids, right? So then the fractional value with at most 2 decimal places will become an integer. So it will become 7525, right? But we don't have any unit, right? We don't have a unit given to this. So if I wrote that this is rupees 75.25 into 100, if I do, then it becomes 7525, but in paise. right? So that's the difference. But here we don't have such a unit system. So the
Someone
thing is
was
that if we
asking this
want to,
before.
yeah, so if we want to remove the decimal point, then since we are using up to 2 places of decimal, you can multiply by 100. Now we can do corresponding operations on the integer value. So after you multiply it by 100, then you can do some integer operations, because now this is an integer value, not a float value anymore. Okay. Now one more thing is, see here. So marks is what? This can contain integer values, but we can also have fractional marks. So 62.5, we are taking up to 2 places of decimal. So this will become 6250. Okay. But when we print it, then we will understand that this is 62.5. This will be scaled down to this value. Okay, so the range is corrected now. Like this will be better understood if I could tell about like casting. But anyway, so 62.5 was our original value. We had to change it to 6250 so that it becomes an integer value and we can perform operations on it, integer operations on it. Okay. But when we want to print that what this 6250 represents, in this case, it is 62.5. Okay, this is a little difficult to understand like this, and not like this will be very useful in the course also, because this type of operations we do not perform in CT also. We will mainly be dealing with only integer, character, and your Boolean and string. So this is just for you to understand that if I am using integer type, then we cannot have float value. So since marks is a subtype of integer, so if someone has a fractional mark, then we have to convert it into integer type mark. Okay. And when we do print it, we will not print it in the form of an integer. We'll print it in the form of, what is this? What is this value? It is
Float.
inside quotes.
It's a string.
It's a string, right? Because
Yes.
this means what? That 6250, this integer represents this string. Okay. Now, this is just to tell you that fractional marks are there and how we deal with them.
Ma'am, where are we storing 62.5 as
This will be like,
62.5?
it's very difficult to make you understand like this because the whole code is not given. See, we are
Okay, so
treating
it's like
this,
we are pretending like that we are
yeah,
storing it
that it is
somewhere.
storing somewhere, that
Just
6250
Okay.
represents
visualize
this
it.
value.
Just
Yeah.
visualize it or remember it. You will
Now,
know as the code comes.
see this one. This is also a similar example that if I take an amount, right, in shopping bills data set, you'll see that I have a total amount of which shopping I have done. So if I have, let's say the amount is 100, then it's fine. It's an integer of it is a subtype of integer data type. 100 is fine. Any integer value is fine. But if I have a value, let's say 27.50, then you have to again change it to integer first. So 2750. What does 2750 represent? It represents 27.50. Okay, so these things are there. But I will tell you, don't stress too much on it because this is not used. This is just very basic for you to understand only. None of this is actually in practice. We are not going to use it in CT. So similarly for quantity also, so I can buy, let's say, quantity, actually, if you check in shopping bills data set, mainly quantity is of integer only. Okay, because we cannot buy, let's say I'm buying a shirt. So you will see that in shopping bills data set, there are all these different categories of items present, right? There's clothes, there's groceries, stationery items, everything. So if I'm buying a shirt, can I buy 1.25 quantity of a shirt? No, I can either buy one or I can buy two, right? It cannot be a fractional shirt. So even though it is given here that if some quantity is in decimal, then you can do the same for this and multiply by 100. It is not going to occur, okay, in practice. So these are all the different subtypes. Like this is just an idea of how subtypes are derived from the primary data types. Okay, a subtype can be anything based on what value what data you have, what are the fields in your data. Okay, so subtype type of question you can find in practice assignment. I think there are some present. Okay. Okay, now this part, now data
Practice
types of,
assignment 9 is there in practice assignment 9.
yeah, it might be. Practice assignment might have. I don't remember that. But yeah, if you have any doubts on practice, I'm going to take this after this one. So Now, till we have whatever we have discussed, data type, subtype, all the flow charts, everything, filtering. Any doubts till now?
No, ma'am.
So
Just one
nothing.
answer.
What?
Anything in double quotes is a string, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything in single quotes is a character.
See, actually, this notation, how we are going to use this. Okay, let me give you an example quickly. 1 second.
ভাই জলের বোতলটা দে তো।
Yeah. So I was saying that, see, I'm not going to talk about single or double quotes. The way to identify is that if there is a single character, okay, if it is a character type, that means there will be a single character. Whether it is inside single or double quotes, usually we use single quotes. Okay. But in case of string, there will be multiple characters. And if there is such a string that has only one character, then we will tell you that whether we want you to take it as a string or take it as a character. It basically doesn't make much difference, because if it is a single character, both will work the same way. See,
For example,
string,
ma'am,
a character is what? A character is a subgroup of strings only, right? It is a special type of string. A character is just a special case of a string where there is only one character present. Right?
Excuse me.
String is the bigger data set, string is the bigger set, char is the subset.
So basically, to differentiate, we have to just focus on the characters, numbers.
The number of characters. Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
ma'am,
Yeah.
excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, basically, we can say, just for an example, that the password we are creating for, it comes under a string data type.
Correct. That is string. Anything that has more than one character is a string. Inside quotations, obviously. Okay. Now,
Excuse me, ma'am.
yeah,
Yeah, how to change one data type into another data type?
that is not required in CT.
Okay.
We won't discuss that. Okay, that is something called typecasting. So if you're interested, you can check out online what is typecasting.
Discuss later.
So now we will move on to records and lists. Okay, now list is something that we will again come back to in week 5. Okay, now you can think of list. I am not going to tell you right now about the depth of what a list is, but you can think of list as a data container, sort of. Okay, that contains data. So records and list, what are they? So whenever I say a record, okay, so data type with multiple fields, each of which has a name and a value. Now see, this is one card from the sports data set, fine. This is one card of some student named Clarence, whose gender is male, date of birth, town, city, marks, everything is given, sequence number. So if I take all of this information and put it in a row, right, can I write this in a tabular format where each row represents a student? That's possible, right? So each row represents a student, and there are multiple columns which have the different fields. So one column is name, one is gender, date of birth, like this. So
Marks
here
and all.
each of the rows are a record. Each row is called a record. Okay. So a record or a tuple also you can call it. So row means record or tuple. So basically a data type with multiple fields. So a single row will have data from multiple fields, right? It will have data from the name field, from the gender field, marks fields, everything. So a particular row is a record or a tuple. Now, a data type with multiple fields, each of which has a name and a value. So the field will have a name. Like I said, field means what? Columns. Just think of it like this. A field is a column and a tuple or a record is a row. Okay, so columns have column names, right? Sequence number is a column name, gender, date of birth, all of these are column names. So these are names of the fields. And every field will have a data type of its own, right? Like sequence number has the data type sequence number, which is a subtype of which data type?
Integer.
Integer. Names is a subtype of which data type?
String.
String. Gender?
Character.
Character. Date is also integer. City is also string. Marks, all the marks are integers. Okay. So every field will have a type of data type, basically. So sanity of field values is ensured. That is why we have these types, is because so that no one in name tries to enter an integer value. Someone's name is 16, that's not possible, right? So that this sanity of data is maintained, that particular field stores particular type of values.
Ma'am, can you give me example with the word data set, the sanity of this?
Word data set contains what fields? Tell me. That is the word itself,
Only alphabets.
which is a string, right? There is letter count, which is an integer. There is part of speech, which is a string. So these are the fields, right? And these are the data types.
Ma'am, every field has a certain data type, I guess.
Right. Every field has to have a certain data type. So that
Ma'am,
field to take data of
if
that.
we're asked to check the sanity, so we have to just check the data type or the actual
The
if
value.
it is
Check the value in that field. That if in name field some value is stored which is an integer type of value, that means that
Mhm.
is not a same data.
Okay, so values would be given and we have to check the sanity of the
Yes,
data.
yes. Value will also be given and the data type of field will also be given.
And in some question, exact
Both
value
equal to
will be incorrect. That is also comes under sanity.
Yeah, incorrect values will be given. You have to identify which ones are incorrect. So this is your word para data set that I just told you. So see, it has the word itself, the letter count, the part of speech, the sequence numbers, right? So the fields will be what? Word, part of speech, letter count, sequence number. Sequence number is integer, word is string, part of speech is also string, letter count is integer, right? See. So these are the subtypes that are given. But if you see that where these subtypes are coming from, you'll know that the primary subtypes are integer and string only.
Ma'am, should we write the subtypes or should we write the basic
You don't have
data
to
type?
write it. You don't have to write it. It will be given to you. You just have to identify which is not sane, which is sane.
Okay, ma'am.
So just remember that what subtype comes from what primary data type. Like sequence number comes from integer, words comes from string. This thing you have to know. Okay,
Ma'am,
now
sometimes values could be given to check the sanity.
yeah,
Yeah,
both will
yeah.
be given, data type value both. Okay. Now list is what? A sequence of data elements, for example, a sequence of records like mark card list. This is the list. Marks card list is the name of the list. So it is the data type for our data set for all marks cards. So each element in the sequence is a marks card record. Basically what? See, a list is what contains a lot of records. Okay. If I have a paragraph word list, so it can contain all the word in para records in it. There is all the cards in it. Okay, this is not the actual definition of list that we will learn later on. Okay, so list, all you need to know right now is that list is a container for data. Okay,
Ma'am, the
list
major
can
difference between list and record could be, or simply
and
we can
see,
say,
record is a single record, list is a sequence of records. That's it. List contains a number of records. Okay, but actual list data type that we will come to later on in week 5. Okay, list is also data type. When we come to lists, dictionaries, that part, then I'll explain. So record is also, yeah.
List is a group of records.
Yeah, list is
Yeah.
just a sequence of records.
Sequence of records. And every row has every field.
Yeah, every row will have every field. Now, record is also known as struct or tuple. Okay, these two names are also used. So, see, this is the same thing for shopping mills dataset. So, we have just given one example from every dataset. So, we saw words in para, we saw scores. This is shopping bills. These are the items. So, this item, category, quantity, these are what? Field names, right? Item is of string data type. Category is also of string data type. Quantity is of, we can take float, right? Because there are decimal values also.
Integer.
So price is integer. If there are decimal values in price, it can also be a float type. Total cost, okay, that is also in this case integer.
And total should be float type.
Yeah, see, I am just saying because in this particular card, there are no decimal values present. That's why I wrote integer. Wherever decimal values you can see, you can call it float.
Okay.
Okay. Previously, you told us
Excuse me.
that if we are buying a t-shirt, it can't be 1.5. So quantity could be different in some other cases, like if we are purchasing wheat, so we can say that 1.5 kg.
Yeah, that can
So
happen. Right.
that
But I am
in
saying
that
that there is one question you can find it in previous years where this sanity
Mm,
of data is given. So for a clothing item, this was quantity was given in decimal. So that is not a same data.
right.
So that you have to identify. Some quantities might be in decimal for certain items, for others it is not possible. So what are the fields in shopping bill? You saw all these fields are there: sequence number, store name, customer name, and then where are these coming from? Right? What are the data types? So for items, what is the data type? That is not given here. So there is a list of items in the shopping bill, right? All of these items, soaps, tomatoes, whatever is there, they're all items. Now, by looking at this, you can say that these are all strings, right? But since we are talking about subtypes here, see all the data types that are mentioned are subtypes. No primary data types are given, right? So items can be what can be the subtype of item they're asking, right? So item has itself two things: name of the field, that is item name, item category, quantity of item, unit price of item, and total cost of item. Okay. And again, similarly, the sub data types of each of these fields. So shopping bills has item as its field, but item also has its own value, like item name. So item list is what? It is a list of item data type. So these are all item data types here. And these are all item fields: item name, item category. Okay, total bill value is a field of shopping bill itself. But if I look at item will have all of these fields to describe itself. That every item has these fields attached to it: the name, the category from which it belongs, how many quantities of that I have taken, all these things. Okay, so item is a particular data. What can I say? It is a record of itself. Okay, so an item has a lot of fields to describe itself. Okay, so when I say items in shopping bills, then the data type of that will be the item list. That is all of these descriptions for a particular item. So its subtype is item list. An item list has all these kinds of data. So this is a little like harder to understand because this is sort of like subtype within a subtype. So item list itself is a subtype, and inside that also we have all of these what can I say, field and data types.
An item list is a string.
Item list is a record,
A
and
record.
sequence of records. Okay, see, it is item list is a list of item data type.
Hmm.
So all of these information will be present for a particular item. Now, in summary, if we say, see, whatever we have seen in week 1. So we have started with your flowcharts, right? How a flowchart works, how the flow control goes, how we can make it into advanced, like more difficult problems with the help of filtering. Then we saw what are the different data types we have, what are subtypes, how they are derived from the data types, what are the range, what are the operations you can perform. And then after all of this, now this slide was just to show you how you can relate that information to the actual data sets that are given to you. Okay. Now we will not ask you to identify the subtype or identify a particular subtype where it is derived from. No. We might say that, okay, if A equals to 6 is given to you, then A is what type of data? Integer type. This might be a question. Okay. So that is it about week 1. Mostly we have covered everything. Now you tell me if you have any doubts from practice assignment.
Ma'am, question
Ma'am,
number
how,
6, 7, and 11.
Okay,
ma'am,
let
how
me stop.
long this session will go more?
It is till 8 p.m., but since I don't have a problem extending, so I can take all your doubts. If you want to stay, you can stay. Otherwise,
Okay,
the
basically
recording will be present.
now all the practice assignment
Yeah, I'm just
discussion.
going
On
to
the practice assignment, we are having doubt, ma'am.
Yeah, let me share that.
Okay, then
1 second.
we can leave now.
Yeah, you can leave. Wait, let me share the practice assignment. Just 1 second.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, in data subtype less than and greater than operation is take or no?
Which subtype?
Date subtype, date.
Yeah, less than greater than is there. Yes.
Means 2 January is greater than 1 January.
No, we have assigned values to each of the days, right? 0 assigned to 1st Jan, 1 assigned to 2nd Jan, like this.
मतलब कि इंटीजर होती है उसके वो
हाँ,
स्टोर करते हैं
yes, yes.
जी हाँ
Ma'am, there is a confusion between these recorded classes. Basically, in previous term, all the recorded or means TA session were uploaded in a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet link was provided. So in this term also, do the spreadsheet we will get or not?
I think you might get if you got it last time. It's better if you ask Piyush sir. Okay, he will be able to answer you these things. I'm not entirely sure, but the recordings are
Because-
available on YouTube anyway.
No, ma'am, the recording
TA
of
session,
13
I don't know. TA
Yes,
session,
ma'am.
maybe a spreadsheet will be shared. I do not know about that.
And for maths and all stats, all
Yeah, might be. CTTA session might be. You will get a spreadsheet link.
because
I'll
in
ask
calendar
Piyush
there
sir.
is no link
But
of 13 January.
just do one thing. You ask him in the next class. Okay. Anyways, I will ask him also. I'll let you know.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Which question did you say from practice? Is my screen visible?
6, 7, and 11. Question number 6, 7, and 11.
Yeah. This is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So question 6 is saying, please check if this is the same question as you have.
Ma'am, the problem is that initialize variables A and B to 1000 is not clear how to do it.
Like you don't understand why it is done.
Why it is said.
Okay,
Because
see,
it's
saying
zero,
what?
and it has to initialize with 0, but
No. See, I'll tell you why this is 1000. So this is based on scores data set, right? That means you know what the cards are storing, all the marks of students and stuff. So step 1 is arrange all the cards in pile 1. So you have a pile of cards from scores. Now you have to initialize two variables A and B. Just take it how it goes. Okay. So A and B are initially initialized to 1000. Now step 3, we are checking in the decision box. Like I said, just check that whether pile 1 has more cards or not. If it has more cards, let's go to step 4. Read the top card that is present. Now you have a card X, right? So now you check the mathematics card, mathematics marks of that student in that card. Okay. Let's say that person has scored 18 math. Okay. What is A storing at this point? 1000. B is also storing 1000. So it is checking whether maths marks is less than whatever value is there in A. So is that true? Is 80 less than 1000? Yes.
Yes.
Then you assign this new value 80 to A. See, then store mathematics marks in A. So now A will be storing 8. If this condition is true.
Okay.
Okay. If the condition is true, then you update the value of A. Now step 6 is saying physics marks. Check if the physics marks scored is also less than whatever is stored in B currently. So B has 1000. Let's say the person has scored 70 in physics. So 70 is also less than 1000. So now B's value is also updated to 70. Store physics marks in B. Now move the current card to another pile and again do this again and again. Okay. So if you keep on doing this, let's say the next card that you picked, the person has scored, let's say 50 in math. So that is less than 80. That means again A's value will be updated to 50 now.
So second time we have to compare with the value with A
Yeah,
in A.
now A, see, every time you're comparing with value in A only. Initially A was 1000. As soon as A is updated, then now you will compare with the updated value. Okay. So 1000 comparison will only be for the first iteration or the iteration up to which this condition becomes true for the first time. So next, if the person scores 50, so 50 is less than 80, now you update A to 50. Let's say the person has scored 80 in physics. So 80 is not less than 70. So B will remain 70. We won't change it. Okay, because this condition is not satisfying. So like this, if you go on, if the next person has scored 30 in math, so will it be updated or not? What will be A?
Yeah, it will be updated.
It will be 30. If the next person, the same person who has scored 30 in maths, if they have scored 60 in physics, then B will be what?
60.
60. So like this, I will continue for the entire data set. Now at the end, what do you think A will store? I am not asking the value. I'm asking what does it represent? What will A represent?
That is the minimum of that subject.
Minimum marks. Minimum
Minimum
marks that any student has scored in math, right?
Uh-huh.
If it is 0, then A will have 0. Similarly for physics also. So for both maths and physics, A and B are going to store the minimum marks at the end of execution. So you just go to the data set and find that minimum mark for physics and maths, and that will be the values of A and B.
Ma'am, I have a
The
doubt.
main thing is decoding this. Yeah.
Ma'am, why do we need to actually initialize the variables to 1000? Like the marks
Because
can.
if you see, marks can range up to 100, right? So even if you initialize this to 101, that will also work. We are just assigning it a bigger value to show you that, okay, this is some max value.
Okay.
Okay. Anything will work that is greater than 100.
Ma'am, 101 would be possible in terms if the total number
Yeah,
is of
I am
bigger
considering
than.
total is 100. No, total is always going to be 100.
Yeah.
Range of marks is from 0 to 100. That's why anything greater than 100 will work if you want to initialize. Okay. Okay, next is
Ma'am, excuse
question.
me, I am
Excuse me,
having
ma'am.
doubt in question 1.
Ma'am, question 11.
Yeah, I'll take 11 after this.
Ma'am,
Excuse
why
me,
the
ma'am.
lowest marks
Ma'am,
marks
please also consider the question number 8.
See, everyone's question I'll take just one by one. Okay, so let's do question 1 first. Okay,
Ma'am,
question 1.
actually, question 1 I have understood. Just one part I am having problem. Please just open the scores data set, and there one part is there 30th April. That card please open once.
Do you know the sequence number of the card?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There one part one card
card
it
number.
has
Ma'am is asking about card number. What is the card number?
30th April, because it can be any card, right? If you don't know
11th
the
card.
sequence.
I think 11th card. Card
Okay.
number.
Wait, let me see.
Ma'am, may I share the screen then?
I'll share it, no problem. Wait. Uh,
Ma'am, is visible?
yeah, I'm
Hello?
sharing. Can you see it?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me which card. This 11th card, 30th April, Rahul, this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what's the issue?
Ma'am, there actually in A also that one is coming, and in B also that one is coming.
Oh, wait, I didn't
Because
check
it is
the
less
question.
than 1st May and greater than 1st April.
Less than 1st May and wait. The value is 30th April, right? So A
Yes,
is
ma'am.
storing any value that is less than 1st May, so it will come there.
And B
Greater
is
than
storing
30th April, how are you doing that?
greater than
30th
1st
April.
April.
No, in B it is checking date of birth is greater than 30th April.
Greater than.
Greater
Not
than
1st April.
30th April.
Yeah.
Oh, then I'm wrong. Sorry then.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
And
I was asking like date of birth is given 1st May. Then, so if it is not saying equal to, it is saying less than 1st May. So
Yeah,
the
that
first
means everything before 1st May, not 1st May not included.
No, ma'am. If anywhere in data it is 1st May date of birth, then we'll count 1st May in which less than or equal to
Equal
in the
to.
first one. Equal
If
to.
there is an equal condition, only then you will count it. Otherwise, it will remain
Then the
uncounted.
condition.
All right.
The condition.
Okay. Okay. So question 11, let's take then question 8. Yeah, this is flowchart, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Interpret the following flowchart and answer the question. Let ABC be three distinct entities. So ABC cannot be equal. Okay, so none of them can be equal to the other. So let's take this type of problem when you are solving. Best is to take a test case. Okay, let's say A is 2, B is 3, C is 4. Now try to solve it. So first come to the terminal once. Okay, first decision box is checking what? Is A greater than B? Is 2 greater than 3? No.
No.
So go to the no part. Now come to this decision box. Is C greater than B? That is 4. Is it greater than 3? Yes.
Hmm.
Come to the yes part. X will be assigned the value of B. So X will be 4.
4. Okay.
Okay. So take any, let's take one more example. Let's take where A is 2, B is 5,
I
C
think
is 3.
X will be 3. If
X will be 3, ma'am.
3.
One second. Oh, okay, it is assigning B value. Okay,
4.
yes, right. X will be 3. I thought it was assigning the C value. Okay. X will be 3. Correct. So in this
Hmm.
example, now let's take 2, 5, and 3. So A is 2, B is 5, C is 3. So
Hmm.
again, do the same comparison here. A greater than B? No. So come here. Now C greater than B, that is 3 greater than 5? No.
No.
So come here now. Is C less than A? That is 3 less than 2? No.
No.
So assign 3 to
X is 3.
X. So what do you
Okay.
understand from these examples? That X is storing what value? The middle element,
Hmm.
right? Or the
Ex-
second largest number.
Okay, I was trying to do all of the thing in one
No, you
place.
just take the decision in the decision box. Whichever branch it goes to, you follow that branch.
Oh, okay.
So that's why this
Now,
is a decision box. Now, if A greater than B, then if the answer is yes, then you go to this branch. If A is not greater than B, then you go to the no branch and follow it.
so we don't have any values here. That's why
Yeah, that's why I
the
told you that take a test case in this type of questions. Take an example.
and some and acha, okay. Whichever case we'll take the value, we have a path for that. Yes.
Yeah. All the cases that is.
So what is the answer of this smallest amount?
Okay,
Ma'am, can't we
question.
have two decisions at a time?
Can't we have?
Two decisions at a time simultaneously. Like
No.
if you
How
want to
can the
check
answer be yes
if
and no?
sorry?
The answer cannot be both yes and no, right?
No, ma'am. It's like if I want to check if A is greater than B as well as A is greater than C. Can't we do in that way in the flowcharts?
If you join both the conditions with an AND operation or some OR operations, then you can.
Yes, ma'am. We can do that in flowcharts.
Yeah. Possible.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am,
But you have to
one
join the
doubt.
conditions.
Ma'am, how do we do that? Can you show me an example?
Just write like this, that A greater than B or C greater than B. If any of this is true, then you go to the yes branch.
Okay, ma'am. This will be written in one decision box, right? We don't have to make two.
Yeah. No problem. You can write it in one box.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, I had one more doubt in this
Yeah.
11th question.
Hmm.
Ma'am, if C is not equal to B, then why we are taking C is less than A? Why we are not taking C is greater than A?
Means I didn't get which box you're saying.
That A greater than B, no box. That part.
This one.
Yes, is C greater than B? If it is yes, then X is equal to B. If no, then C is less
So
than
that
A.
is how you are going to find the second largest element, right? The point of the flowchart is to find the second largest element. So if
No, so if
A is
we
such an
give
element, yeah.
C is greater than A, what would happen?
If A is greater than B and C is greater than A, that means C is the largest element, right? But from
Yes.
this, what can you tell about A and B? A is greater than B. and C is greater than A. That means A is the middle element, second largest.
Yes.
So that's how
So
it
in
is.
both way it would be correct. I was
So, ma'am,
asking.
Yeah, see, in
what do
any
you
combination of digits you take as ABC, it will always give the second largest one, this flowchart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am, if we are asked any questions on the vowel, the question number 10 is first letter of the word is a vowel, so it will be given in Boolean form, always yes or true or false.
Yeah, if first letter is a vowel or not. Is the
Is
first
question is
letter a vowel?
data type, always.
So is the first letter, if the first letter is a vowel, that means it is either a vowel or not. So it is Boolean, true or false.
So if in any case it is asked a questions, then it would be always a Boolean.
Yeah. If this type of question is there where there is a yes or no answer, it is always Boolean type result.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, question 8, someone asked, right? Okay. What is this saying? Words data set and what will count represent? So first you are arranging all the cards in pile 1, then initialize variables A and count to 0. Both A and count are given the value 0, assigned 0. Now, if file 1 is empty, stop the iteration. If there are more cards in file 1, then you read the top card. Now, since this is words dataset, it contains, every card contains a word, its letter count, its part of speech, and the sequence number of the card. So if the word present in the card is Monday, okay, so this is the condition. If the word present in the card is Monday and A is equal to 0, both these things have to be true. Then you will increment A to 1. Increment A means increase the value stored in A by 1. So A becomes 1. Step 6 checks if the word ends with a full stop and A is greater than 0. Then increment count. So let's say you are at the end of a sentence. So that last word will contain a full stop. Right. At that point, you also check whether A's value is greater than 0 or not. If both these are true, then count will be incremented. Count becomes 1 when you reach the end of a sentence initially, first sentence. Step 7 is checking if the word ends with a full stop and then reinitialize A to 0. So in any iteration, either step 5 will be true or step 6 will be true. Okay, both of them cannot be true at the same time. Because in step 5, A has to be 0. Right, and in step 6, A has to be greater than 0. So either 5 will be true or 6 will be true. If step 6 is correct, that is, word is ending with a full stop and A's value is greater than 0 at that point, then you go to step 7. And since the word is ending with a full stop, so you will reinitialize A to 0. So whatever value is stored in A at that point, it will be again reverted back to 0. So as you start reading the words from the next sentence, you are again starting A from 0 and incrementing like that, wherever you find Monday word. Okay.
Ma'am, why like step 6 and 7 are written differently?
Differently means?
Like the 6 says that if the word ends with a full stop and A is greater than 0, then increment count. Why isn't that the step 7 is also written along with it? It says the same thing almost, except of that A is
Yeah, except this
reinitialized.
one reinitialize thing. So of course, if a word is ending with a full stop, then we will reinitialize. So basically, steps 6 and 7 are, you can say, they are conjoined sort of. If it is the last word in the sentence, then both of these steps will work. Okay, and like
Then,
that.
ma'am, excuse me, ma'am, as the answer is written with C, then why not, ma'am, A? Why C?
Let me break it down. I just read the code. Let's understand what it means now.
Okay, ma'am.
So C, why it is given is number of sentences that have at least one occurrence of the word Monday. So count, we are asking what is count representing, right? So count will be incremented when? Count will be incremented only when we see that A is greater than 1 and the word is ending with a full stop. That means we have reached the end of a sentence.
So it will count the sentence actually
So A
because
will
full
be
stop
1
is there.
when? A will be 1 only when that particular sentence contains a Monday in it, right? If it doesn't contain Monday, then A will not be incremented. See, step 5 is that only. If the word is Monday and A is 0, then increment A. right? So A will be incremented how many times? Only once in a sentence if it contains Monday.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
step 5 clear to you? See, A is initially 0. Now let's say I am reading a word that says last Monday I went to school. If this is a sentence. Okay, so this is the first card, second card, third card, fourth card, fifth card, sixth card. Sixth card contains a full stop because it is the end of the sentence. Now, initially A and count are both 0, right? So you read the first card. So step 5 is the first word Monday. No. So you don't do anything. Don't increment A. Now step 6 is the word ending with full stop. No. Last has no full stop. Again, step 7 also no full stop, so nothing you will do. Just pass it on to the pile 2 and go to the next card. So now tell me, is the word Monday? Yes. And at this point, what is the value of A? 0. So I will increment A. So now A becomes what? 1. Now come to step 6. Is the word ending with full stop? No. Since there is an AND condition, that means both the conditions must be true. Word should end with a full stop and A should be greater than 0. A is greater than 0, but word is not ending with full stop. So keep step 6. Again, step 7 also not full stop, so move on. So you move this card to pile 2. Similarly, you go through I, went, to, all 3 cards, right? And A remains 1 and count remains 0. So you reach the 6th card, school. So school contains a full stop as it is the last word. So step 6 is now true. Word contains a full stop and A is at this point is 1. So increment count. So now count becomes 1. Now step 7, if word ends with a full stop, correct, then reinitialize A to 0. So again I put A assigned back to 0. So when you start the next sentence, you will again get a clean slate. A will start from 0 again. But count will remain 1. So at the end of all the sentences, what will count represent? All sentences that have at least one occurrence of the word Monday. Even if there are 2 occurrences or 3 occurrences of Monday, A will only be incremented once. Why? Because A is incremented when currently A's value is 0. Only then. So only for the first Monday occurrence in a sentence, A will be incremented. After that, no more increments. Then A will again be reinitialized to 0 at the end of the sentence. Clear? If it is
Yes, ma'am.
not clear yet, you can go through the solution once. Just try to go through every step yourself and take an example like I did. Take a random sentence and then go through it, then it will be clearer. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, if anyone has any other practice questions, you can ask in tomorrow's session, okay? Because it is already much later. So
Okay, ma'am.
tomorrow you will also have a week 1 session, so you can ask there.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thanks for joining. Yeah, have a good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.